So there's an old saying amongst football coaches that says you never want to follow a legend. You always want to follow the guy that follows the legend. And this guy right here is following a legend. But can he be successful? But first, before I get into that, high fives and butt slaps for coming back. My name is Coach Ron McKie. I talk all things football. And in this video, we're going to talk about Alabama, what could potentially happen in the upcoming years, and one way where they can actually be more successful. So let's get into it. The first thing we have to do is we have to get this out in the open. Nick Saban is a GOAT. And I don't think we all understand how much of a GOAT Saban is at Alabama. So I'm just going to read off a couple of stats, okay? So the first thing we have to do is we have to look at Alabama's entire history of wins, losses, and ties. And right now, I'm going to read this right off the screen, is 950 wins, 320 losses, and 41 ties. That is from 1902 to 2023. But let's be real. Until 1971, when Alabama and the SEC were desegregated and allowed black people to come in and actually play, they really didn't play top-tier talent. So if we exclude every win up until 1971, Alabama's record is 525, 144, and 3. Still pretty good numbers, but once we take that pool of wins, right, how many does Saban actually account for? Well, in Saban's 17 years at Alabama, his overall record is 201 and 29. That means if you do the math, and Nick Saban has 38% of the wins since 1971, when, people actually could play football regardless of your race. That is very impressive. Now, I know everyone's like, Bear Bryant, Bear Bryant, Bear Bryant. Screw Bear Bryant, because let's be honest, okay? When I say the name Bear Bryant, you think of this man right here in this movie right here. You don't think about him standing on the sideline with his little hat thing going on right there, that if he wore that today, he would get clowned on so much. Now, let's be honest about the Junction Boys and Bear Bryant, okay? They went 1-9 that year. They sucked. It wasn't until 2 years later when they actually went 9-1 or whatever, but they couldn't win a bowl game because they were on probation. So why do we keep giving them that much love? I don't know. I blame ESPN. And also, since we're on the topic of ESPN, could you please bring back this show? It was amazing. All right, so we got Saban's win percentage out of the way. 38% of all the wins from 1971 until now are under Nick Saban. That is an ungodly amount. But let's talk about championships, because that's what everybody wants to throw in anyone's face when they're talking about Bear Bryant and Nick Saban. So Wikipedia says Bear Bryant won 6 national championships. But again, remember, we said that nothing really counts until 1971. So he only won 3 freaking national championships, compared to Nick Saban's freaking 6 during the BCS and the college football playoff era. That is insane. So the next time someone says Bear Bryant was a better coach than Nick Saban, smack him in the mouth and tell him to go watch Junction Boys again, because that dude is petty. And again, the fedora. Now let's talk about championship droughts, because from 1979, Bear Bryant's final championship, to 1993. That's a 13-year span where Alabama just sucked and they didn't have any wins in the championship game. And just to give you some context on that, here are some things that happened in those 13 years between national championship and national championship. John Lennon was shot. Pac-Man was introduced as a video game. MTV started up. Thriller was released. Thriller. The Challenger exploded. The Simpsons were created. Batman with Jack Nicholson as the creepiest Joker ever known on the history of film came out. The Game Boy launched. Seinfeld was created. And Disney World opened. That is what happened in history between your drought. Then something miraculous happened. Alabama won a national championship again in 1992. And it wouldn't be until the GOAT Nick Saban came back into 2009 that they would win again. And that is a span of 17 years championshipless. And again, to give you some context of what happened in that 17-year span, we got Friends, the OJ trial, Selena's death, Tupac and Biggie both got shot and killed, Harry Potter books and movies took off and just captured the entire world, Facebook became a thing, we had the whole Brad Pitt, Angelina, and Jennifer Aniston situation going on, even though I liked Mr. and Miss Smith, Netflix, the Twilight series, the MCU became a thing before Alabama won another national championship, and Kanye West interrupted Taylor Swift. All of that is to say that Nick Saban is legit a once-in-a-generation coaching talent. And Alabama fans, you've got to understand that y'all are going to kind of be screwed next year. But maybe not, and I'll get to that in a minute. But first, if you like this video, could you just please spike that like button down below? It really helps the YouTube algorithm get this video out there and to show the world that Nick Saban really is the GOAT, and we need to give him his flowers now while he's still around. The next thing we got to talk about why Alabama needs to kind of hunker down and just be happy with what they get in the upcoming years is because Nick Saban, not only was he a championship winning coach, he also revolutionized the defensive side of the ball. And not many coaches can do that. If you don't know what I'm talking about cover 7 type defense, where it was essentially matchup zone taken from the basketball world and put into football. And this is what I love about this defense. First off, if you ever ventured into online coaching Twitter, you would see the biggest pissing matches because you would get terms like this thrown around. Apex, cut, meg, mod, stubby, stump. And if you said it wrong, you would get flamed because there's nothing worse in the world than a football coach that thinks he knows the other team's or another coach's playbook and wants to be an expert to flex on everybody. And what I love about this is Coach Saban actually took what offensive coaches were saying at the time. They want to play basketball on grass. We want to play basketball on grass. Go fast and do everything like that. And he was like, okay, you want to play basketball? You want to run up tempo? You want to score a lot of points? Well, I'm going to take a defense that on the basketball court gives teams such a hard time because they have no idea what's going on. And I'm going to put that on the football field. And what that is the matchup zone. And when I was a football coach, I also coached basketball. And when I taught this, I taught it using basketball principles. So I'm going to teach you real quick the entire philosophy of this, and then I'm going to go into some video. The easiest way I taught my kids and how I'm going to teach you is by visualizing a 1-3-1 basketball matchup on defense, right? So you got this red circles are offense, the blue X's are defense, and everyone is kind of matched up on a man. And we'll say that little green dot is the basketball. So you notice how everyone's matched up on a man, and it looks like it's a man. But let's say that the point guard, who the circle on the top, passes the ball, and then he cuts through the lane. Now, what does this guy right here do? Does he just sit there? No, he doesn't have anyone to actually man up and play defense. So he's going to sink back until someone rotates into his spot, like let's say this wing right here, and then he's going to come up and defend him. And then since this man doesn't have anybody, he's going to sink back until this guy comes up, and then he's going to come back and defend him. This is essentially what cover 7 is when it comes to defensive football. And there's a lot of rules to it, and I'm going to show you what some of them are. So you have these rules based on formation and personnel packages. You have to know what the mod is, the mix, the switch, the bracket. You have to know what to do when they come out in 2x2 stack. You also have to know what the adjustments are when it's 3x1. What do you call? Is it a game plan call? Is it a situational call? And then you have to have all these checks for empty. Here's an example of Coach Saban's Rip Liz pattern matching when they run verticals. Notice how when the offensive player runs into the defensive player's zone, it turns into man. And when they go out of it, they pass it off and then sink into zone. Here's an example of this play right here. Alabama's going up against Florida. Vertical, 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 and vertical. And watch how these defenders right here, since they're going into their area, they play man-to-man, which is a beautiful concept because now everything is covered up. And watch how the quarterback has no one to throw the ball to because it looks essentially like it's man-to-man, and that is an incompletion. Here's another one of his rules that Saban is just a genius for when you got 3x1. Man up, number 1 to the left, number 1 to the right, and then you leave these guys open to actually play in the matchup zone kind of defense that Saban is known for. And what you'll see is this is canceled and this is canceled, so now the rules apply. If he goes vert, he takes them. If he goes vert, he'll handle them to a certain yardage line and then pass them off for the safety. And this guy right here is just a free hitter. If it was a run, I know this is 7-on-7, but if it was a run, he could fit into the gap. And if not, he can play back and just play on the ball. And that's exactly what happens here. And there's no one to actually be open. And that's the beauty of this defense. Because cover 7 changed the game. It forced quarterbacks to actually know their progressions, to make tight throws, and it confused them because it looked like man, and some routes have man concept or man beaters, but then when they would convert that, all of a sudden, it's not man, it's zone, and offenses really struggled with that. Just a little side right here. I am not an expert in Sabanese. There's a ton of different people out there that know this defense better than I do. I'm just giving you the general overview. So if you're going to come into my comments and you're going to just trash talk me, please, for the love of God, I hope you stomp your toe. And another thing that Saban did that Alabama fans have to get used to not having again was he forced offenses to evolve once the cover 7 came about. Because then that's when you see a lot more RPOs, the opposite side RPOs, spreading out the receivers so that they essentially turned cover 7 into legit man-to-man and then playing with that. Saban doesn't give enough credit for changing the game offensively as he does on defense, but great coaches do that. Another thing that great coaches do is they have an extensive coaching tree that has gone on and done great things. Now, no shade to Belichick, but come on, Matt. He's the reason why the Eagles are gone right now. Aside from that, this is some of the coaches that have coached under Saban have gone on and done great things. Kirby Smart, Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian, I probably said that wrong. Dan Lanning, Jimbo Fisher. As a former South Carolina grad, I have to put this name up there because he was really good defensively. But hey, I know this loss really hurts still. Hey, that's enough about Alabama sucking harder than a vacuum at a porn convention. Let's talk about the things that can actually make them stay at the level that they are at. And it is going to be on the offensive side of the ball. So you've got Washington against Boise in the very first game. And this is one of the plays that kind of stood out to me from an offensive-minded person, that why I think Alabama may be successful and explosive on offense next year. So Washington comes out in a 3-by-1 to the field. You've got a tight end, wide receiver. There's your 3. There's your 1 up there and a pistol alignment. And then they do something to try to confuse the defense, which is they shift back into tight offset. And what I mean by that is tight bunch. So you've got the bunch right here, bunch rules. So now the defense has to check to whatever their bunch rules are. So they have to communicate, and doing that puts stress on these 4 right here. Then the running back goes from pistol to sidecar, which again puts stress on the defense. And this 2-man concept is nasty because what's going to happen, and what I want you to notice, is he is going to run a vert corner post. And watch what happens when he nods in this area. This safety's hips opens up and plays the corner, which then opens up this right here. But you might be wondering, okay, that's awesome, Ron, but what about this dude? Well, he takes care of that because he comes inside, gets this safety's eyes to look at him, and that opens up this area of the field right here. And as I play the film, you can actually see that opens up, and now there's just a little bit of space there, and that's really all you need, especially if you're going to be like Alabama and you have the athletes that can actually do that. I know a lot of coaches out there hate the saying, oh, we got athletes too, but not Alabama quality athletes. Another thing that coach does well that I think is going to apply great for Alabama on the offensive side of the ball is he trusts his players to make plays based on what the defense does. And then here's an example of that. So in this situation, it is do or die for Washington. They're down by a touchdown to Oregon, and they have to score. They're in the red zone. There's about 1:40 left. So coach calls up a screenplay, but he has a little twist on it that some offensive have in their playbook, but really don't allow their quarterback to make the throw. And what I mean by this is they have a screen going up, block, swing, cut on the front side. And that's normally where offensive coaches want the ball to go. But on the backside, he gave his quarterback an escape route. And what I mean by that is a vert. And essentially, he's trusting his quarterback to make the throw. He's saying, hey, if it's one-on-one back here and this safety is not involved, then you can go ahead and throw it. And that's exactly what happens because this safety drifts over here, leaving his wide receiver one-on-one matchup. And the coach is like, hey, I want you to take it. And that's exactly what happens. Notice the safety drifts to the middle of the field for a one-on-one, and he allowed his player to make the throw. A lot of coaches don't put that amount of trust on their players that say, hey, if you can make this, if you read it right, I will allow you to do that. But coach does. Another thing that Alabama should really be happy about with their new head coach is that he has the balls to go for the jugular, especially against their rival. For instance, in the Apple Cup, 3rd and 1, you would think they would run the ball, and they actually do get in a running formation. As you can tell, there is no wide receivers out here out wide. They've got everybody in a box. Everybody is right here. There's no wide receivers out wide or anything like that. So this tells the defense or signals to them, hey, it's going to be a run. It's also 3rd and 1. We've got to stop the run because this is a crucial point in the game. But what does coach do? He runs a 2-man concept on 3rd and 1 and just has a post and then a wheel with the play action, and it sucks up the entire defense. Now, yes, I know that Washington State fans are going to say this guy fell down, but the formation, the play design, and the call in the situation made him fall down because he was so happy about stopping the run. And this is what happens when you sack up and you call a play action fake on 3rd and 1 against your rival. So Auburn fans, sucks to be you. So there's a lot of good things that Alabama fans can be hopeful about. It's just you need to taper expectations and know that you never want to follow a legend. You always want to follow the guy that follows a legend. Hopefully, this doesn't happen for Alabama because I hate Georgia and I want them to lose every single game. And also, if you like this video, you're going to love this one as well.